What is up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Hope your week 8 is going more like Dalvin Cook and less like Javon Wims. Kevin and I are here to hit you with the first look at the week 9 waiver wire. So we're just going to jump right into it. Kev, start us off with quarterback and who you're looking at for week 9.
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth on this list on how I'd kind of put these guys, but I think I'd have Stafford at 1. They're going against Minnesota. Minnesota can definitely be thrown upon. Stafford, the one thing I will have to say, we're going to have to monitor Stafford this week, not because of him, but more because they lost Kenny Golladay, who left in the first half with a hip injury. So, we've sort of seen Stafford in the past not play as well without Kenny Golladay. So we'll see there on that. But he still today finished 24 for 42, 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, they still have Hawkinson, and Marvin Jones actually decided not to be dust anymore and had a decent game today as well. So I like him going against Minnesota. Minnesota has not been great against opposing quarterbacks either. So I do like that. Derek Carr comes in number 2 for me against the Chargers. Listen, Derek Carr has quietly went under the radar, and I know a lot of people are not going to be impressed with him after what he did today, but we should have known this. We talked about this today during our pregame show that we did. They were facing 40-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, it was brutal out there. So they weren't going to be doing a lot of throwing. He did not. He only completed 15 of 24 for 112 and a touchdown. But, prior to this game, he had 3 straight games of 20 fantasy points. And he's averaging 19.4 fantasy points per game. And right now, the Chargers have been terrible against stopping opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed the 4th most fantasy points to the position. So I really like Derek Carr this week going up against the Chargers. And then Teddy Bridgewater, they face the Chiefs this weekend. Teddy Bridgewater, had a kind of a rough game against Atlanta, 176 yards and a touchdown. He had 5 carries and 30 yards. He did leave for a portion of the game after he took a nasty hit to the head. I believe it was in the second or third quarter of that game, but he ended up coming back. But CMC should also be back for this game for the first time since week 2. He was close to returning this week, but it sounds like he should be ready to go this week as he returned to practice. So I think that gives a boost here. Some other options, I think Drew Lock. Listen, it's not sexy, but it looks like they finally maybe figured some things out with Drew Lock. Today he finished with 248 yards and 3 touchdowns, but 3 of those touchdowns came in the fourth quarter. He also passed for 200 of his 248 passing yards also came in the second half as well. So Atlanta's been terrible against opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed the second most points to the position. So I think if you're kind of desperate, I think you could go Drew Lock. Kirk Cousins as well, I think, is an option. I put Cam Newton on here. Initially, when I first saw it, I kind of had Cam Newton a little bit higher, but let me be honest. He is completely matchup based. He was not very good today. Basically, the only reason I have him on this list is because they're playing the Jets, and the Jets are terrible. But so Cam Newton today, he basically cost the Patriots the win with the fumble inside the red zone. They do not have Julian Edelman, no N'Keal Harry, so it's really tough to trust. So he's basically, if you're playing him, it's because he's playing the Jets and his ability to get outside the pocket and create plays, with his legs. I think he had 54 yards rushing today, so he just wasn't very good. So it's tough to trust him. And then if you're really desperate, guys like Nick Foles against Tennessee and Kyle Allen, I think you could possibly go there if you're absolutely desperate. But that's pretty much where I'm at with quarterback this week.
Yeah, quarterback definitely have some options there. We have a question for next week already from Michael Hoffman. Would you rather start Stafford with Golladay out next week or Josh Allen versus the Seahawks?
It's 100% Josh Allen. This should be one of the highest totals on the entire slate next week. This game against, you'll have to see if hopefully there's no weather concerns like we had this past week, but a lot of games were affected by weather. But this game, Josh Allen, I think could be a real fun one. Josh Allen again going against Russell Wilson. So.
How do you feel about Jamal Williams against the Niners on Thursday? Abraham would like to know.
Well, Abraham, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Aaron Jones at this point, right? Because, he was ruled out again this week. He didn't practice at all. I can't imagine that Aaron Jones is going to play this week. Coming off a short week, they play Thursday night. So I don't think you have to. I think, but I will say this: the 49ers have been really good against the run. They did a good job against it today. Really, the only way that DJ Dallas, which was a guy that we really talked a lot about today, a guy that I was pretty high on playing, and he ended up coming through for us, but mainly because of his involvement in the passing game, not for what he did on the ground. So he did get a late rushing touchdown, but he also had a receiving touchdown. So Jamal Williams is going to be tough to trust, but we'll have to wait and see because Jimmy Garoppolo left that game as well. So,
yeah, I mean that's the Niners have been one of the most injury riddled teams this year, like right up there with Philly. Abraham also wants to know, should I pick up Philip Lindsay? Yeah, I mean definitely worth a pickup. Seems like he has more juice than Melvin Gordon does, but these questions always come down to who are you dropping for him. But I definitely think he's worth a pickup, especially a running back where week to week it's with all the injuries that we've had as well. So Lindsey definitely worth a pickup. And then also from Abraham Pena, should I pick up Corey Davis, Chark, John Brown, or Slayton for next week? I mean, Ridley should be out, I would think, because I believe they have their bye the following week. And that, so I can't imagine they're just going to rush him out in this game. Like, I don't really think it would make too much sense.
Well, I think they said during the broadcast and after the game that they thought it was pretty minor of an injury. So I think he actually has a shot at playing because obviously he got that extended rest because they played Thursday night, so he got more time to rest from it. And let's face it, I know that there's probably not a high likelihood that the Falcons are going to make the playoffs, but they need every possible win they possibly can get at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if Calvin Ridley actually plays. But with that being said, I don't know. I would probably go Chark, and then I would probably go Slayton, then Corey Davis, or no, then John Brown, then Corey Davis. Listen, I don't think Corey Davis is going to continue to do everything that he did today. It was a monster performance, but I think that's going to be a hit or miss.
Yeah, I agree on those. But like, it hasn't always been pretty with Corey Davis, and I'm gonna talk about him here in a second. But he's put up double-digit fantasy points every week this week. So let's see. Earthly Links back in the chat. Should I hold on to Henry Ruggs moving forward? I mean, this game with the wind, the weather, like I wouldn't. Kev you were just talking about it with Derek Carr. I wouldn't look too much into that. I like having those kind of boom bust guys on my roster. Like if needed, I would not feel comfortable starting Henry Ruggs on a week to week basis. I think the most amount of targets he's had has been like 4. Even that week when he went off, had over 100 yards, that was on 2 catches. So it's not like he's out here doing it with volume. It depends on who you're going to be dropping Henry Ruggs to pick up.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, that I wouldn't base anything that happened this week for the Raiders off of this week because, like I said, it was a really rough game to really trust anybody from this passing attack. We knew that heading in, so I wouldn't base anything off that. I think Henry Ruggs still has some pretty big performances coming.
It'd be Lindsey for Boston Scott.
So I don't hate that. That's actually a really smart move because the Eagles obviously go on bye this week, and then when they come off bye week 10, Miles Sanders will be back. So actually, I think that's probably a pretty smart move.
So James Robinson is going to be the RB1 for Abraham. Who should be the RB2? Jamal Williams if Aaron Jones doesn't play, or Antonio Gibson?
Antonio Gibson. The Redskins are playing the Giants.
Yep. Hasty or Gaskin in week 9. So Gaskin's going to be at Arizona, and then obviously Hasty going up against Green Bay on Thursday night.
I could obviously change my mind there, Mark. You might want to come back and ask again on Wednesday, but as of right now, I would probably go Myles Gaskin.
I agree. I think his volume is a lot more safer to follow than Hasty. At Gala, number. Does Gesicki have any PPR value moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, today was just a little bit of a rough game, but they obviously steamrolled the Rams for the most part, and they didn't really have to do too much on offense. So that's not going to be the case every week. I mean, this next week against Arizona, we're going to find out really what Tua is made of here. So that they should definitely going to have to throw the ball. And so I think Gesicki certainly has quite a bit of value.
Abraham, this one would depend on who you were taking out to put Jamal in. And then obviously if Aaron Jones plays or not, we'll be going live again on Wednesday. We'll obviously have more information then. So join us again on Wednesday, and we'll have a better feel for you for what to do at the running back position and at your flex. Billy Foster traded Miles Sanders, DJ Moore, and Hawk for Julio and Jared Cook. Already had Gaskin and CMC. Seems like a lot.
You definitely gave up way too much, like entirely too much. Because Miles Sanders, like I said, is back week 10, and I mean when he's played, he's been a RB1. So those are so hard to come by. And then DJ Moore has been hit or miss, but has still been solid. And then TJ Hawkinson really has been one of the best tight ends all season. So yeah, I think you probably overpaid on that one. I understand some of the guys that you have there with CMC and Gaskins, but you still gave up way too much for Julio and Jared Cook.
Hoffman, I hope so. I mean, this is we've talked about this before. There's all this hype always leading up. There's all these rumors coming out. This guy might be going. This guy might be going. This team's interested, and then we get like an LB3 moving team. So hopefully, I would love to be able to do an entire show on the trade deadline and all that, but typically it just doesn't seem to happen that way. So let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver waivers for week 9. I kind of split mine up into tiers. If you're watching the percents here, I just basically pick the highest percentage out of ESPN and Yahoo, and that's the one that I just threw up here. So these guys are going to be just rostered in the highest amount on these ones. So tier 1, I have Jalen Reagor, Corey Davis, and Mecole Hardman. There's a lot of options at the wide receiver position, but there aren't a lot that like really stuck out to me as like gotta go grab these guys outside of Jalen Reagor. At this point right now, he has 2 catches for 10 yards and a touchdown on 3 targets the last I looked. And this is obviously his first game back after that thumb injury and surgery. So I think he's just going to be more involved going forward. And to be honest, he's the only one on this list who has any shot at all of being their team's consistent wide receiver 1 on a week-to-week basis. Corey Davis, like we were just talking about, 36% rostered at the highest between ESPN and Yahoo. He has quietly been pretty consistent. It hasn't always been pretty. I think he had the one game where he had 10 targets, only had 3 catches. The touchdown kind of saved his fantasy day, but he has had double-digit fantasy points in every game this year. His lowest target game was 5 back in week 2. With the way that Tannehill has been playing, Tannehill has been a big miss for me this year. I did not think that he'd be able to keep the role that he had been on to finish the year last year, and he's come out and do it. He's done it rather. Mecole Hardman there at 30%. Obviously had the increased target share and opportunities this week. He had 9 targets, went 7 for 96 and a touchdown. You can't fully trust it because he's kind of popped off like this before, and then next week he'll end up being like Demarcus Robinson or something. But with the following week, I believe, is the Chiefs' bye week. I'd imagine they're going to hold out Sammy Watkins again. He hasn't played in like the past 3 or 4 weeks with that hamstring injury. So I think if you're looking for someone to kind of that high ceiling, low floor, I would look at Mecole Hardman. Tier 2, Russell Gage, Zach Pascal, Curtis Samuel, and Kev's boy, Keelan Cole. With Samuel, he's been – I will be interested to see how his running game usage gets scaled back or does not get scaled back with the return of Christian McCaffrey. But Curtis Samuel has looked good in that role over the past 2 weeks. I think he has 3 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. Has been seeing, I think, around like 5 targets each week as well. So if you're looking for someone who might be getting it done in a couple different facets, might be getting utilized, like we were talking about with DJ Moore, hasn't exactly been consistent. Maybe Curtis Samuel's role is starting to expand a little bit. Russell Gage, especially if Calvin Ridley is out, he'd be an option I'd be looking at. Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton left with a groin injury, and Pascal was actually second on this team in targets behind T.Y. going into this game. Hilton has not looked to be his former self at all this year, so I would think this groin injury would be a couple weeks for him. So Zach Pascal is somebody who's definitely not going to be sexy. Only has that 4% ownership throughout ESPN and Yahoo leagues. So Pascal could be somebody who might be looking at a very expanded role going forward for the next couple of weeks. Tier 3 for wide receivers: Darnell Mooney, Henry Ruggs. Just noticed I have Mecole Hardman twice. So Mooney, Ruggs, Kendrick Bourne, Randall Cobb in Tier 3 for me. I wish I could trust Darnell Mooney a little bit more. Obviously, Anthony Miller was more involved this week. 6% roster. He's definitely their big play threat, right? Like Anthony Miller's targets went up significantly this week. Mooney, I think, is one of those boom bust kind of guys you can throw in if you have to. Henry Ruggs, we touched on. I would really like to see the Raiders get him involved a little bit more. We've seen what he can do with limited touches. Like I said, he has not been getting it done with volume at all by any stretch. But this week, the Raiders will be getting the Chargers. Obviously, Justin Herbert is out there slinging around to Jalen Guyton and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, the running backs as well. So hopefully that game will be higher scoring. And I think that the Chargers D-backs could be beat with some speed. Randall Cobb, particularly, there's one of the rumors that's going around right now that Will Fuller is being called upon, and the interest for him has been going up, especially by the Packers. So Cobb could be an interesting option here, especially if he gets dealt. Tier 4, Anthony Miller, Denzel Mims, Laviska Shenault, and then Alan Lazard. Lazard returned to practice last week. It doesn't really seem like there's anything looming in terms of his return. But he's somebody, if you have the extra room, you can look at stashing. I would not put, in your first 2 or 3 claims for him, kind of see if he falls through the cracks, pick him up. He's still rostered in 34% of leagues. Anthony Miller, again, I'm not going to chase the points. We have always been Anthony Miller fans on this here podcast, but hopefully this week isn't just a blip in the radar. But up until this week, Anthony Miller had for sure been behind Darnell Mooney. Denzel Mims, this is another guy who needs to be way more involved. The Jets have absolutely nothing going for them. I think Mims has led the team in back-to-back weeks with like 40 yards receiving. It's been super ugly. Mims is the only explosive threat that they have. They need to find ways to get him more involved. And then Laviska Shenault, somebody that I can't fully trust. The matchup this week, though, sets up pretty well with them going up against Houston. Should have to throw a bunch to be able to keep up. So, and then the other name that I forgot to put on this list but needs – that was why. 2 names to throw out that have a difference between ESPN and Yahoo. So Sterling Shepard is more available in Yahoo leagues. He's only rostered in 42% of leagues over there. So if you're playing in Yahoo, you can go look at picking up Sterling Shepard. And then Mike Williams, only 43% rostered on ESPN. So that's why he didn't make the list here. I think he's like 60% something rostered in Yahoo. And same thing with Sterling Shepard on the flip. So like I said, a lot of options, but none that really stuck out to me as like, gotta go get him, throw the rest of your fab on this guy outside of Jalen Reagor. Oh, sweet. Billy hasn't done it yet, so thanks for stopping by.
Table that trade.
Yeah, Lynx. After starting off the year just on an absolute tear, Josh Allen has not been looking like the MVP candidate that he that he started off the year as.
No, but I will say, I mean, some of that again today there was really disgusting weather out there in Buff. Or was it in New England or Buff? No, it was in New England. Yeah, so it was terrible weather today there. So they really didn't have to do a whole. I mean, they didn't really throw the ball a whole lot, but he still hasn't killed you. Like, I mean, he hasn't been putting on the blistering pace that he was to start the year. We had 28, 34, 32, and 25. Week 5, you had 18, 16 against the Chiefs, and then 16 against the Jets, which obviously isn't necessarily what you're looking for. But, I don't think it actually kills you either. So this should be a great bounce back spot for this offense in general. John Brown back healthy, and then, Stephon Diggs, against Seattle. So, yeah, I think you can look for him to bounce back.
All right, let's move it on to running backs. Kev, what does the running back landscape look like heading into week 9?
Yeah, I could go a couple of different ways here in terms of where I kind of have these guys. But for me, I think it comes down to this top group is probably so Zach Moss. Listen, we've kind of talked about in the last couple of weeks that he is somebody that has really looked better than Devin Singletary. And today he had 14 carries, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had 0 targets. However, this was a very low volume passing day, and Singletary only saw 1 target himself. So, I mean, I think that was more of an anomaly than anything. But one thing to note, Zach Moss handled all the work inside the red zone, which kind of makes him, I think, a viable RB3 moving forward. We kind of talked about him today as somebody that I think people should look to start, because I just can't trust Devin Singletary anymore. Devin Singletary has looked like ass, to be honest with you. And, Zach Moss started the year kind of rough, but, over the last couple of weeks, he's really started to turn it on a little bit once he's come back from injury. So I like Zach Moss quite a bit, and I think you can project better game scripts for him moving forward. And he's actually a better pass catcher than Devin Singletary is too. So if Zach Moss somehow is available in your leagues, I would definitely look to add him. Damian Harris, rostered in 41% of leagues. Listen, some other people may have him a little bit higher than me. He rushed 16 times for 102 yards and a touchdown. But to be honest with you, he doesn't catch passes, so that it really caps his upside. And in matchups where they're going to be behind, and to be honest with you, we could see a Patriots fire sale going on right now after this week. I mean, they're clearly not going to make the playoffs. They're atrocious. I could see them moving guys like Stephon Gilmore and trying to get something for them. So we'll see what kind of happens here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they move away from Cam Newton either. So Damian Harris is going to be tough to project on a weekly basis. And is he going to get the volume? Because, even last week he still was solid. I think he had like 10 for 56 or something like that. But they were getting the shit kicked out of him. So it's going to be really hard to project. You feel great about playing Damian Harris every single week because he's not involved in the passing game. So I think that's why for me, I'm a little bit lower. Justin Jackson looked great today. 17 carries for 89 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 53 yards on 5 targets. He's also over the last 3 weeks has had 17 targets. And let's be honest, Joshua Kelly is 100% droppable. Like, if you own Joshua Kelly, just go ahead and drop him. Yeah, right now, actually. Don't even think about just anything further. Just hit that drop button because he's done. Right, he has just looked terrible this entire year. Really, he had a couple like 1 or 2 mediocre games, but he was him. So Jackson and Tremaine Pope vastly outtouched Joshua Kelly today, and really, I think Justin Jackson, which is somebody over the draft season whenever things were going, like he was the guy that I was much higher on with Justin Jackson. I remember dropping the little stat, the line. What they say that Justin Jackson was the most important running back they had on their roster, or something like that, over the training camp. And then we started to get some Joshua Kelly buzz, and that kind of simmered down Justin Jackson a little bit. Every time Justin Jackson has ever been given opportunities, he's always looked really, really good with them. So I like Justin Jackson. If he's somehow available, so maybe people dropped him because he kind of has struggled a little bit here. I think he's somebody that really I could make a case for maybe the number 1 waiver, because I don't know when Austin Eckler is going to come back. People, keep talking about Austin Eckler, but I mean, Anthony Lynn just said that, it's going to be later rather than sooner. And if this team continues to lose like this, like they lost today against the Broncos, they may not bring him back. I mean, what's the point of bringing him back? So I do like Justin Jackson. A couple other options here. Gus Edwards, 16 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. Um, but he only had one more touch than he only had one more touch than J.K. Dobbins. They both carried a heavy workload here. The Ravens carried the ball 47 times today, so it doesn't look like Mark Ingram's going to be back anytime soon. If he's not, I think Gus Edwards, is a decent option. So, and then Jordan Wilkins. I really went back and forth if he should even be, because I don't think he's necessarily like a priority waiver ad, because
Right.
Frank Reich tends to go with the hot hand approach, and it's really killed Jonathan Taylor. Like, this was a smash spot for Jonathan Taylor this week. I had a lot of him in DFS, and he did absolutely nothing today. It was a shame that he got vultured for a goal line touchdown, where his carry he was hit immediately in the backfield, and then Jordan Wilkins comes in on the very next carry and gets it, and it's just a huge hole. He just walks right through. So I don't love Jordan Wilkins, but if he's available, any running back that's getting opportunities, I think he's at least worth a look. So the secondary tier, LaMichael Pirine, I don't know what the Jets are, why they keep giving Frank Gore opportunities. LaMichael Pirine looks like the better running back, but listen, they're always going to be trailing. They're always going to be behind. So it's really tough to trust to play LaMichael Pirine. Cam Akers, actually, I really thought long and hard about putting him as a priority waiver ad, because he's only owned in 31% of leagues. Darrell Henderson left today's game with an injury, so if that's any long-term situation, I think Cam Akers, maybe this is his time to really take over this backfield. They spent a high draft capital pick on him. We love Cam Akers heading into the season, but I do think it's probably still going to be a committee between him and Malcolm Brown. Naheem Hines in PPR formats makes some sense. DJ Dallas, again, this is a guy we really talked about a lot, but with DJ Dallas, I feel like that, one, if Chris Carson comes back, then you can pretty much go ahead and drop DJ Dallas, because he's not going to get really any opportunities outside of maybe some pass catching work, which he looked like a decent pass catcher today. But it's very possible that Chris Carson returns as soon as this week. But if he doesn't, I think DJ Dallas is at least worth a look. And then Tony Pollard, Alexander Madison are straight, basically handcuffs. And then you have I put Jermichael Hasty up here in this deeper league, mainly because I just don't know if you're ever going to – I know they play this week and they play, Thursday night. And then Tevin Coleman actually left in the first half and did not return. He looked like he re-injured his knee, and so he never came back. But I think Jerick McKinnon is probably going to still see more of the opportunities here. I don't love Jermichael Hasty. Like, if you had to play him, I think you could play him. But – it's not something I feel great about, and I don't think it's something you need to go out and invest like heavy draft or heavy waiver priority or fab budget on. And then, some of the other guys, Brian Hill, J.D. McKissick in PPR formats, Kerryon Johnson, Benny Snell, Eno Benjamin. Actually, maybe I could have had a little bit higher here, because I think he probably gets some opportunities now with Kenyon Drake out of the lineup, because they run the ball so much and they run so many plays that Eno Benjamin very well could end up seeing some opportunities here. But other than that, that's pretty much the list.
I will not tolerate any Devin Singletary slander. He had 5 more rushing yards than Zach Moss today, sir. There will be no Devin Singletary slander allowed
Devin
on
Singletary's
these
a bum, so okay.
Speaking of bums, let's just roll right into the disgustingness that is the tight. Like, I didn't even want to put these names on here. I just wanted to leave this graphic blank other than Eric Ebron. Somehow Eric Ebron has been on our waiver list for the past 3 weeks and has been sitting at like 50% ownership the entire time. So we haven't had to change this graphic at all. This has literally been the same graphic from the same past 3 weeks. You pull it up, you go, oh, Eric Ebron, still rostered in 50% of leagues. Sweet. Who's coming after that? So I have Eric Ebron first, again, 50% rostership in ESPN and Yahoo leagues. Logan Thomas coming in second. In the I don't even want to call it the top tier, but Logan Thomas is going to have more availability in most leagues. If Eric Ebron is not already rostered, you can look at going to Logan Thomas. They get the Giants, and Logan went 3 for 42 and 1 against them a few weeks ago. And it kind of seemed like Logan Thomas is starting to finally get his yards and his touchdowns over the past couple weeks as well. So you could look toward him. And then tier 2, but really it's like tier 8 because I don't really want to go toward any of these guys. But Greg Olsen, whenever you have Russell Wilson playing as well as he has, I guess he's an option. Like that's how bad tight end is this week. Irv Smith, rostered in 7% of leagues. He only had 1 target this week, but Kirk Cousins had himself a Mike Zimmer special, and he only threw the ball 14 times. So Irv Smith is obviously has a lot more to offer at the tight end position than Kyle Rudolph does. And then if you really need to, I mean, you have the three Indianapolis Colts tight ends that you can look at. You have the 2 Cleveland Brown tight ends that you can look at as well. Both of the Cleveland tight ends, they both had 3 targets this week. I think that's just going to be an absolute headache to try and figure out. And then, like I said, with Indy, I think Mo Cox saw the most targets with 4, I believe. And then you had Trey Burton and Jack Doyle both saw 3 each. None of them like really popped off. I think that is going to be an absolute headache as well to figure out. The only time I'm going to feel comfortable starting any Indianapolis tight end is if one of them or 2 of them get hurt. Other than that, it's going to be way too hard. It's basically impossible to try and figure out on a week-to-week basis in terms of who's going to be involved and who's not. So, I mean, that's really what that comes down to. In ESPN leagues, Robert Tonyan is only rostered in like 42% of leagues. And Yahoo, he's up in like the 60 or 70. So if you're an ESPN, you can also look to going to Robert Tonyan. Kev, anything else you want to add on here at the end?
No, I mean, I don't think it's it's not like there's any like monster ad this week. I think there's some decent plays or decent players that you can pick up to help your fantasy teams. But I don't think there's any like league winning type guys. The Chase Edmonds, he's already rostered by everybody already. And, I think some of these other guys, like I said, are more, matchup dependent type plays. So, but that's always probably a good thing too, right? Because it has been a brutal year for injuries so far. The massive sheer amount of just guys that have been hurt and missed time has been unbelievable. So, I think that's about it. Check back on Wednesday whenever we do our start sit show to get some more advice. And as always, drop whatever question you have in the comment section, and we will 100% answer it as they come in with who you should be spinning your fab and waiver priorities on.
Yep. That's it. So, like Kev said, we'll have the buy sell video coming for you guys on Wednesday, and then we will be going live on Wednesday as well. We'll try to talk start sit, but you guys I should clear this up. If you were watching, if you stuck out the entire 3-hour podcast that we did on Wednesday, the sign off I was not the greatest. I said this is asinine, and I accidentally hit the end broadcast button. Complete mistake on my part. It was crazy. It was absolutely asinine. You guys were. It was wild. Like, I've never experienced anything like that. The question just kept coming in. We got through quarterback last week, and then the rest of the show was just straight questions and start sets and trades and rate my team and all that. But it was awesome. That's obviously what we're trying to build with you guys. We're trying to build a community here. So I promise on Wednesday I will not prematurely end the podcast. I almost went a different direction there.
Prematurely ejaculate? Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah. On that note, we will see you guys Wednesday. Bye.